Hi, Lilou. How are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you doing on the session 8 of the weight release series that is transforming in a life transformation?
I, I love it. No, it's great. I'm really pleased and I'm really interested because where, of course, we left off was at a fairly profound breakthrough for you.
Yeah, yeah, and
This
yes,
real, this real,
I really felt like well, I did have a new opening as to how I can relate to food, and I saw how that was one of the main ways that I had to love myself. So
that's
since
right.
then, I discovered new ways of loving myself.
Great.
Yet this old pattern and behavior is kicking back in, and I'm in France right now for the next weeks, until the Juicy Living Tour starts in January. So I just delayed my trip. So, I'm traveling around France, and visiting different people, doing all kind of things, and my old the French way of living is kicking back in. Each time I change countries, I feel like I have a little bit of a time of adapting, and that's when I use food to help me, however stressful emotion comes up. So moving, I guess, instead of expressing or taking it easy, it's likely, I think, that I use food again in those moments.
Yes. Okay. So let's identify, because what I heard you just say is you use food to help with stress and emotion. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
And the fact that you're moving and things are changing, is part of what perhaps triggers some of the stress and the emotion.
yeah,
Okay. What are some other triggers? Because, well, let me back up. First of all, what we call the experience, the aha moment, we call that a point of reference. So it's not like you can capture that in a bottle in kind of relationship without having some support for that point of reference. So the point of reference, if we just because it really helps to define it, is about relating to food as a way of loving yourself. Is that accurate?
mm-hmm,
Great. And to the degree that you're conscious and you're doing it consciously, there's a quality in the experience. Can you describe the quality of experience when you're loving yourself as part of the relationship to food? Consciously, not unconsciously, trying to love yourself. I mean, when you went, you ordered food, you were going for a state of being. That's what you brought a book. You had a whole way that you created space in time. You weren't rushed. You had a certain amount of stuff going on for you, maybe positive things that helped ground you. What's the quality of experience in that moment in relationship with food?
it's a very healthy relationship. It's a non-attachment relationship. Um, I very much in that moment go for something that I would love to eat. There's no privation. It's really coming from I would love to eat that. I want to fully enjoy that moment. I want to fully enjoy that experience. And it's a state of being, awakened, of being present to what I'm eating and enjoying it. So I'm more patient, I'm more calm, I'm taking my time, I am making the pleasure last. It's a real
Okay.
pleasure.
Okay. So present, awake,
Mm-hmm.
patient, calm, aware. Okay, those are the qualities of
Yeah.
the experience. Right. Okay, great. Because we want to strategically set you up for success. We want those qualities to be very intentional in the practices that you create around food and what food represents in your life consciously. In other words, as you name it and call it something for your life and you identify it in those terms, especially as it relates to this greater sense of mission and purpose. You've heard me talk about this. This is the imperative. What it is that really fuels your choices, that becomes that point that you say, either my choices are in alignment with this thing that I hold as dear and precious that I really want in my life, or they're not. And when they're not, we just want to look at that. So what I'm getting is that leaving Chicago, prior to leaving Chicago, you, and tell me if this is wrong, but you had at least a moment of feeling very grounded, very present. You weren't depriving yourself. You weren't, and this is going to be important language, conflicted. You weren't conflicted when you sat down to eat. Is all of that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Because the conflicted part is going to be really important. And this is a bigger piece than just food. This is where there are different energies running simultaneously. This has to do with that integrated self again, that we're okay with all sides of ourselves, so that when we come to the meal in that moment is very simple. It doesn't have the complexity of a lot of the, baggage or other ways that food is represented, unconscious patterning that might be less functional. You
Mm-hmm.
got me?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. So since then, going to France, that moment, that point of reference has been tricky to maintain, and you've caught yourself slipping into patterns where the dining experience was less than present, aware, patient, calm, awake, and so forth. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I just want to write down so I've got all these. Okay, perfect. So what we want to move back towards is that the quality of experience in relationship to the food is present, aware, patient, calm, awake, that you're nurturing your body, that you're enjoying food. There's no sense of deprivation. There's no conflict, that's what you're doing, that you're fully engaged in the process when you sit down to eat. Cool?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And to the degree that you get triggered, let's take a look at that. So the moving around is triggering you. Some parts of just the French culture and French maybe eating habits, the kinds of food and so forth, are triggering you. Is that accurate?
The kind of food, no, I have to say it's very healthy and it's
Good.
balanced.
Good.
But
So
it's
what about?
as soon as I'm eating by myself. Like I've noticed a major improvement on when I'm eating with others, how I'm less using food when I'm not at ease, to ease myself up with the situation. So I'm noticing very much being a big change in that relationship. But when I'm on my own, I wish I would just cook. I would take the time instead of just eating right there. I mean, there's been some major improvement overall, but I do have to notice. I would love to just lose that extra weight that I had been putting on the past months.
Yes.
Naturally, and I cannot. It's hard to not notice for me in my jeans how tight I am in them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm fine with that. That is part of your reality. Is there's an experience of, wow, I recognize I'm still carrying this extra weight. The awareness of that is part of the integration. We don't want to deny that. What we want to track with the triggers, and even with that experience, is what's underneath it in terms of what we can address. So one of the things I heard you say is taking the time is become to prepare meals for yourself. Is that what I understand? That's a piece of the puzzle?
That's something I'm not doing. Yeah.
Okay. And even taking the time to eat, I'm just imagining now if you're moving a lot, that oftentimes there's a level of convenience when it's convenient or inconvenient to eat. Is that accurate?
That's not as much of a factor.
Good. Good. Great. So let me ask you a question. Do you ever um, let's go about setting some things up. How soon after waking up in the morning do you eat?
Oh, right away.
Perfect.
Within 10-15 minutes. I mean, I have that in my on my mind right away, and I'm hungry in the morning, so I have good breakfast.
How does and let me just ask you, how does that go for you? Is that usually a very calm, very grounded, very centered meal?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's you see that would be the most important one to me because when I grew up, my parents having restaurants, that would be really the only time I would see them is in the mornings. So
Ah,
that's a
good.
very precious moment where I take time. I could even cook something. I would, at some point, I've actually just got to say that I would even um, really prepare, whether I'm alone or not. But it's in the evenings that it's more triggered because that's a time where I wouldn't see them.
Got it. Okay, got it. So then I'm just going to ask a few questions about the day. So then breakfast is great. We feel really good about breakfast. That is really not a triggering meal. How often do you eat? What are the intervals?
I eat every meal,
So you do three meals a day?
3 meals a day, yeah. And then sometimes, like at 4 p.m. or so, I would have a snack or something.
Okay.
The
One of the things
challenge
you
is when I'm just eating when I'm hungry or I think I'm hungry,
so eating
which
as
could be more regular than if I when I was in Chicago. I know not so much here, but then I have or I'm not bored, but or I have this sense of boredom, and then I just or stress, and then that's when I just go and have something to eat. But other
right.
than that, usually it's the main meals.
Okay, so very simply, we would want to set up in your day that there are ways that you interrupt the pattern. So there might be breaks to meditate, there might be breaks to walk, there might be breaks to do things in your day. So you strategically set yourself up so that you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah,
One of the
that's
things,
well. That's great that you're saying this because I do have to notice now that I spend so much time in front of the computer working that my time is not balanced at all.
okay,
I really feel maybe there needs to be some kind of routine or scheduling up some things at certain time so that I'm proactively setting things up instead
awesome.
of being yeah.
Okay, this is good because traditionally when I work with people, week after week 9 is what we call the WIT week, which is whatever it takes, which really is where the individual sets up for themselves all of their self-care practices. And actually, oftentimes they even plan out meals, they plan out breaks, they plan out ways to care for themselves. And I don't expect them to do this, by the way, for the rest of their lives. The reason we only do it for a week is it becomes, again, a point of reference that what happens is, and if we travel back to the first time we ever worked together, and I asked you all those questions that you gave me a 1 to 10 answer, one of the things I asked you was, to what degree do you believe that the patterns are never going to change, right? To what degree do you believe you're stuck? It's been this way, it's not going to change. And I think the number was like a 9 or something. That there's some part of you, or maybe it was an
Yeah.
8, but it was a high number, that some part of you goes, I don't know if I can change. And so what the WIT week establishes is that you have the personal power to establish for yourself strategies and choices. And then after that week, people were like, this is so great, I want to do this forever. And I kind of caution them and
Cool.
say, look, it's not a forever thing. It's a strategy that you can apply at any moment in time. So if things are feeling out of control, you have this benchmark. You have this place you can go back to. You go, I can design my life however I want. Look, I did it for 1 week. I can do it for other periods of time where it's not so precise, but where the tools are still utilized so that you have the personal power to make shifts and adjustments in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So one of the things we can do is you can really begin to look at your day. And what I offer, and I can send you this, I have a chart where you basically map out meals, you map out breaks, and you put next to them the quality. The quality is the most important. So
I
you
like
don't have
that.
you don't have big food choice issues. Other people do. When people have big food choice issues, what I ask them to do is list the quality. Even in their shopping list, I offer that when people go shopping, that they eat before they go shopping, that they never go on an empty stomach, and that
Mm-hmm.
they make a full list of what they're going to buy, and they actually put next to it what the quality is. What's the associative quality? So they're making conscious choices to nourish themselves versus slipping into unconscious patterns. So the same would be true for your schedule for your day or your week.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I feel I do pretty good food choices.
And one of
But
the
setting things up in a yeah on a schedule would be good.
Great. And one of the things that's really going to be important for you too is we talked about how Your intentions in the morning work really well, and your bedtime appreciations, your gratitude ritual that you do at bed work. But during the day, a lot of your self-care kind of goes out the window. Is
Yeah.
that accurate?
Yeah.
And we really need to bring that back because that's how you manage your energy, especially as you go into the Juicy Living Tour. We
Yeah.
want you to be operating at a really deep sense of availability
Yeah.
on that. We don't want you distracted, and we don't want habits that are going to take you out of your sense of personal empowerment. So we really want to set up a strategy for you to be successful.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I feel
So,
that would be easier though on the tour, since I'll be out and not in on front of the computer all the time and having a team to support. But
yes, both. Both.
I do know that then once I get hooked on something, I can forget myself. Yeah,
That's
so.
right. So that's a beautiful way to look at it, that you get distracted and you forget yourself. That
Mm-hmm.
is really important, that you remember yourself, the self that you're working on cultivating from an internal quality of experience level is really critical. It's critical in all facets. I mean, the fact that we're working with food, you realize this applies to myriad other things that don't relate to food, but it doesn't matter because we can start anywhere. We get to the same place, that your sense of yourself is integrated, so no part is rejected, denied, and that you are making conscious choices versus slipping into unconscious patterning. It's kind of that simple,
Mm-hmm.
really. So, okay, so one of the things we talked about, and I know you're working on this, is your practices for mindful eating, your mindful eating practices, what you do to prepare for nourishing your body, how you orient yourself so that those qualities again are accentuated. And I'm going to read them back. Present, aware, patient, calm, awake, nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss any? Does that sound like that's good? That's the right number.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So those are the qualities infused in whatever affirmation, whatever ritual you create for yourself. That it is about breathing perhaps to get present, bringing your awareness to, being patient with yourself, calming yourself, being very awake, and consciously nurturing your body. That's the process that's been ritualized in every single bite of food that you take in when you sit down to fuel,
Maybe
right?
then having a book when I read, but when I'm by myself is the best.
Well, it's
I
very interesting.
wonder because that's how it all started. Originally, I was reading Gay Henrik's book, The Five Wishes, and that was part of that
Yeah, I think
experience. And if I enjoy a book, then sometimes I'm not so focused on the food. The same thing. Then if I'm with people, then I'm more focused on the people. So maybe that's a way.
Well, yeah, I think that's interesting. I don't disagree, except to say that oftentimes with people, I offer that they don't do other things, and they really, the practice is about being with the meal. So it's interesting. There's no right way or wrong way. I would offer a couple things. I think what was directing your experience
Mm-hmm.
when you were having that wonderful point of reference on a quality basis was this quality of the book you were reading. There's something in the quality of that you were learning, taking care of yourself, growing. That there was something about that conscious projection, right? That we consciously project onto something is ritualizing. That's what it is. So the book is I'm consciously projecting that this is a book that's about nurturing myself. That you gave yourself the time. It sounds like when you went to that restaurant, the raw foods restaurant, you allowed yourself an amount of time, right? That
There
because if
was
those
no amount of time, interestingly enough, because that day it was a Saturday, and I really decided it was a day where I had set up and prompt the day to be a day where I would celebrate, where I would enjoy, be with. It was kind of like not a ritual day, but I had set it up so that I wanted to launch all the beautiful intentions and everything. I wanted to not I guess ritualize. That was the day where I wanted to ritualize things, and that happened on that day.
yeah. Yeah, this is it. So we're kind of weaving around in this. What I'd love for you to do is find that. Find what that quality is. Find how those qualities, what they are and how they get expressed. And it doesn't have to be precise. It can very much be general. Remember, intention directs experience. And I know we did 2-column with you. We did the 2-column where the right-hand side is what you're going for, and the left-hand side is sort of what is the other side, what you're kind of working, limiting beliefs, irrational thoughts, agreements, the stuff that kind of drags you down. So in order to get to the right-hand side, you have to acknowledge and be with the left-hand side, but not over-identify it. If it gets ignored or denied, it then gets big. In other words, what we resist persists. But as we acknowledge it and still make the choice to, step into whatever we're bringing in through the use of intention. What I didn't do with you was the 4-column. And the 4-column, the reason I didn't do it with you, I'll explain it, is because I didn't feel like you needed it. But what the 4-column is, which is important, is we still have the big line down the middle, which represents the split. On the right-hand side is the what you want, and on the left-hand side is what seems to get in the way of it. But what we do is we go to another column, and we actually say, what is the expression? What is an expression of the quality, right? Because what happens with a lot of people is they can tell me what they want on the outside, but they have trouble identifying what the quality is. That's where they get tripped up. And what we want to focus on isn't the expression as much as the quality, and find expressions. So when we do 4 columns, we work backwards. And on the left-hand side, if a left-hand column is something like doubt or insecurity, what we would do is we'd do the little line and we'd say, how does that get expressed in the world? So you got 2 columns on this side and 2 columns on this side. But the 4th column is the expression. So initially I kind of get people to the quality level, and then the idea is to take them back to expressions. So what would be an expression of the quality? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't have to know precisely what to do with that. I just want to bring that into your consciousness, because as you start to work with the quality and you start to really begin to dwell in that quality with intention, you'll find wonderful expressions of it in the world.
Mm.
That's where we're not.
I was expressing my goddess side, my feminine side, actually. That day was set up for me to express my feminine side, for me to be in touch with that. So that.
Awesome. Perfect. And I'll tell you what's fascinating about that is, we'll go back to the tight jeans, that it's so interesting because the shadow feminine, the shadow expression is body image or negative body image, right?
Mm-hmm.
The positive expression is the full acceptance of woman, embodying the fullness of breasts and fullness, and this rich sort of deep sense of the deep feminine, where it gets expressed in this goddess way. So it's interesting because, again, with the split, the body image issues that are coming up are shadow expressions of the positive quality, which is a deep connection to your feminine being and so forth. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we want to integrate. Everything's about integrating. So the part of you that's having body issues, what you apply to that is a compassionate perspective that allows you to shift from not liking your body to loving your body and loving your curves.
That has happened throughout our sessions.
Awesome. The dysmorphia, which some women have, where they look in the mirror and they really don't see themselves as they are. This happens with anorexics. They are totally disconnected from the feminine that you're talking about.
Well, that's what I saw when I looked back at some videos of me a few years ago that I did, when I started the show, and I was like, I was complaining at this time. I can't believe it. Oh my God, it's just crazy.
It's so wild.
And I was like, oh my. I have a distorted view of myself. This is crazy.
No, so this is really important. All right, let's just put this in that you are becoming more authentic, more loving, more accepting. And I've said this many times, but I'll say it again, is that, remember, compassion allows us to see clearly. Yeah. Judgment distorts our perception of reality. So to the degree that you love every aspect of your experience, you become more integrated, you become more whole. Yeah. And so that's the big shift that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I've also noticed it on a sexual level too, because I've been even more open and just really fully accepting to a whole new level my body, and it was just like it's phenomenal.
Excellent.
It's all part, I think, of I mean, for me, integrating that feminine, as you say, that nurturing, that forgiving, that loving, all that
And
is
what
so
that,
free, is so freeing, is
yes.
really, really
Okay.
freeing.
Now I'm going to tell you. All right, this is huge. To the degree that we are conflicted, when there's two things going on at the same time, it paralyzes us. So, to the degree that you're integrating and becoming more authentic, what you're doing is we call it healing the split. Well, it actually a big piece of it is it's the idea of being fully engaged versus conflicted. And sexuality is a really important illustration, especially for women. For when women are feeling fully engaged, they can have orgasm. When women are feeling conflicted, they can't. It's like it freezes
Yeah,
them. Do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah.
That's a fantastic illustration. Now let's extrapolate. Let's take that and just widen it out to your life. That to the degree, um, I'm going to use an example. Okay, so for example, with your mom, there's a part of you that wants to be accepting and loving of her.
Hmm.
There's a part of you that's still resentful and angry. And until you integrate those two, it's going to be very hard to have the positive quality because there's still this lingering aspect of your experience. We often talk about the way that's expressed in defensive ways, like we hang on to something, we hang on to resentments, or we hang on to a position we've taken, and it's not fully integrated. To that degree, it's very hard because we're in a place of conflict and or confusion.
Mm.
If two emotions are going on at the same time, if we're both mad and sad, what we do as a defense mechanism is we go into confusion or overwhelm, which is actually defensive. What I tell people is the way out of that is to choose. Just choose. And this goes back to my acting days. When I would have two emotions going at the same time, I realized I just had to choose. And my acting teachers always say, just make a choice and go for it 100%. It'll take care of itself. Well, the same is true in our work. When you have confusion, choose one to express. And in that, it frees you up energetically. Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah.
I wonder, this has come up in my mind. It's going to be to the degree that you want to, and you can tell me if you want to do this or not, it might be very valuable, especially as the holidays are coming up, to do a little relationship work. And maybe it's with mom. You tell me if you want to do it, but it would be a powerful process to do. And it's interesting, too, because it would be especially important in preparing for a mate. There's a piece of this puzzle
I
that
think
you
it would
can.
be more with my dad then. Because my mom,
Perfect.
it feels like I have done quite a lot of work and a lot of healing.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so here's a piece of the here's how the work looks. Everything starts with vision. You create a vision based on the quality of experience that you want to have in a relationship with dad. And you tease out what those qualities are. So, just off the top of your head, what would some qualities be about the relationship, the ideal relationship in terms of a vision that you want to have in a relationship with your dad? What are some qualities?
That I might not have right now, but I want.
Yes, precisely.
Okay, that there's great communication,
Okay.
that we express whatever there is to be expressed, and that he um, calls, and that uh, asks to be in communication, like takes the phone and call, basically, which he
Th-
doesn't. He never does.
This
Uh,
is interesting. Keep going. You're doing two things at one time, but it's great. Keep going.
uh, I would love that he expresses his love for me as it is, that he's vulnerable, uh, that he, yeah, is tender and loving, that just he shows his emotion. that he is present in my
Okay,
life.
great. Okay,
That we
fantastic.
exchange, that we have a relationship.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting because this is all going to be really critical. All right. So, when you say great communication, and then later on you said open communication, I want to get to what the quality of that is. Is it honest? Is that what we're talking about? Honest communication? That you're honest or something?
No more that it is present. Like there's just no communication right now. Not
Right.
not
Oh,
much I would call, but there's no intimacy or no. There is great connections when we're together,
okay.
and
Good.
really awesome. And when we're on the phone, we're really there. But I don't know if he thinks of me because he never calls, you know. But I know he does. It's just his way of being, and
Lilou, I'm smiling. Okay. All right. You ready?
yeah,
You sitting down?
yeah, I am.
What part of you has
Uh
taken a
oh.
What part of you has taken a position? What part of you is waiting for him to ask or waiting for him to call? What part of you has taken that position?
Not so much now, you know. As you can hear, I get more detached with that now. I mean, I'm really coming to the conclusion that he's just not like that, you know. So instead of making him wrong, which I did for many years, now I'm fully okay. I got that that's the way he is.
Okay. Um,
I still
so
wish part of me, yeah, of course, there's probably a part of me though that does wish that he would pick up the phone and do that. But I've given up kind of on the thing because it's just not happening. So, but he does it in his own way. That's what I'm seeing and that's what I saw, and I feel loved. You know, I do.
brilliant.
It is present. He communicated that to me. We did some retreats and some things where I clearly got that.
Okay, good. So here's the work. It's interesting. I still think mom is the major charge, but it's okay.
It could be,
Because
yeah.
Yeah, because here's the deal. So I'll just tell you what I'm going for. To the degree that we take a position, this is often we experience this in terms of like a power struggle, and we know what the other person needs, but we're not giving it to them because we're locked into our position of what we're not getting. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I do this with my wife sometimes. We don't try to do it, but we do. We get into the power struggle, and then I know what she needs. I know what she wants, but I'm not giving it to her because she's not meeting my needs. And we get locked into that. And then we have to recognize that what we're going for unconsciously is a bit of a train wreck. And when we get back to the qualities that we want to have in our lives, that it's a matter of consciousness. We've gone into an unconscious protective patterning. Okay? And so the opposite would be to shift to a conscious, intentional process of meeting someone. Right? It's really simple. Um, so if we talk about either parent, the
Mm-hmm.
three things are that you practice seeing their loving essence. This is
Mm-hmm.
how you shift the dynamic. Seeing their loving essence, listening to them with an open heart, and acknowledging them, praising them, noticing what's positive about who they are or what
Well,
they're
the
doing.
one thing with my dad is I would say he is selfish. He's super selfish, and he thinks always of himself first. And then with my mother, it's like she's always, wanting me to be different than I am and interfering and and this and that. So I wish she just accepts me the way I am.
Sure. So we call that the dynamic. Now, the dynamic is energetic. It's charged by two sides. In other words, you bring a charge to it and she brings a charge to it. If either of one of you releases the charge, the dynamic must end. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
say that again. If either one of you releases the charge, the dynamic must end because you have to match energy or you can't do the dynamic.
Right.
So, to the degree that you show up with a different intention, however, what we find is we get triggered very easily. This relates to all patterning because it's a default mechanism. So we actually have to consciously practice doing something else, or we're liable to slip into the old patterning. And for many of us, and this is true for me in relationship with my family, I'll talk very honestly, I have had real trouble over the years letting go of my position in relationship with my brother. I've done it with all three, my father, my mother, and my brother. I've held the position with all three. The one that's been the most challenging is my brother, because I'm still reacting from a very child trauma place where I feel like I have to defend myself. To the degree that I take care of myself, and honestly, all I need to do is see my brother's loving essence, see him, listen to him with an open heart. So people need to be seen, heard, and understood. That's it. Everyone in the world, three things: seen, heard, and understood. When they're seen, heard, and understood, they change their behavior, because that's the deep need that's not being met. And what we do in family patterns is that's the underlying need, but the dynamics that are running are all defensive.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So to the degree that you're able to be vulnerable, tender, loving, show emotion, present, communicate, and be intimate with your father, and hold that as what you're showing up with, and listen to him, see him, hear him, and acknowledge him, his needs will be met, and all of a sudden his armor will come down. And it will, invariably. Like, it takes some time, and you have to be a little bit conscious about how you do this. And sometimes we actually set up a system whereby we would ask you, what is the current level of fulfillment in these various categories? We'd give it a number value. Then we'd create a plan. I'm going to write him a letter once a week. I'm going to call him twice a week, and I'm going to see him, so forth and so on, once a month. And in those experiences, here's the quality I'm going for. What happens invariably, and this is to a person, is at the end of the process, the numbers go up. Because it has nothing to do with the other person. They're not doing anything to you, or to me, I should say. It's the degree to which I'm able to show up and be present and meet their needs. Honestly, that's all it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing with mom, which would be, I think, very interesting, is, again, there's this whole dynamic, which if you unplug from and you actually start to meet her needs, because that's what's underneath it. You may find, however, there's a part inside of you that doesn't want to do it. And I call that the position. And trust me, I experienced that in relationship with family members. What I'm proud of is, at least with my parents, I feel like that's really, by and large, I've let go of that. Every once in a while I lock in with my mom especially, or dad, but really mom's my trigger. But my brother and I, it's still like, he's my master teacher. It's always, for me, a bit of work to prepare to meet the guy, because I'm always feeling like I have to defend myself, right?
I love it how you say that, to meet the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, because what he's reflecting back to me is all of this charge that I still hold inside myself. So that's why he's my master teacher. So with your mom, it's very interesting. To what degree is mom connected to her femininity, this deep feminine sense? To what degree do you feel like she's connected to that?
90%, 100%.
She is. She's connected to that.
Very much so, yeah.
Okay, so what is the split for her? You know a lot about split at this point.
And maybe I've idolized that. I think part of my challenge with my mom is that I put her on a pedestal. So I think that's where it is. She's probably not that, So there's that relationship to my mother. She's she's petite. She's very active, very feminine. This and that.
Is it possible? Well, let me ask it this way. How do I want to ask this question? Is it possible that she isn't as judgmental, controlling, critical, yada, 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 as you project onto her? Is it possible? To what degree is it possible that is how you experience her versus what she's doing?
Yeah, it's very, 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 very likely that she is not as much.
Beautiful. Great. Okay. And to what degree have you projected your inadequacy, your feelings of inadequate? You're not inadequate, by the way. You're perfect.
I feel inadequate most of the time around her.
Yes. So what has happened is she has become for you a point of reference where you project inadequacy, which is something you feel inside. To the degree that you're working on your whatever's underneath inadequacy in terms of misunderstandings and so forth, to the degree that you're able to love and nurture those aspects of yourself, that's the degree to which that charge begins to lessen, lessen, lessen. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfect. So it's interesting as we go into this Hollywood. I'm so funny. Holiday. I'm having
Mm-hmm.
holiday in Hollywood.
Hollywood, yeah, holiday,
Yeah,
Hollywood,
yeah,
Hollywood
yeah.
holiday.
With Holly and everything. As we go into this holiday, I wonder how much you can work with these qualities so that you really and I can help you with this, by the way. I mean, as you've seen, I do this in terms of a vision, and I get very intentional, and I really direct my experience because that's powerful. It's this idea of I'm invested in a quality that I'm going to experience and express and meet people over, and then to the degree that people can meet you there, they do. To the degree that they can't, they go right past you. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have these kind of qualities that you're dwelling in, that you're promoting within yourself, and then finding ways of expressing out in the world and connecting with people, that's where you'll be met.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's great work today. It's interesting because I never know where we're going to go, by the way. This bends and twists and turns. So I just want to track back because I do want tangible things that you can do. As you strategically, and you have so many skills and so many tools and so many resources, as you strategically set yourself up for success, I want to support you. So, to the degree that you want to take a day and say, I'm making Wednesday, let's say, I don't care what day it is, any day, and I'm really going to intentionally track and plan the day and see how it feels for me to really take qualities and find expression of those qualities in the foods I eat, in the way I care for myself, in the ways I create these little practices just for a day as a point of reference that you really are the author of your own experience.
Yeah, I do like that because that day when even a day to express my feminine goddess side, even at least once a week, if I would do that the same way that I did that Saturday, and just like no really, I mean, no particular interviews on that day. I had interviewed Don Miguel Ruiz, but I really felt that was on love, and I did that from a different place than I usually do, even because of that was my
Beautiful.
intention. So it was a way more
Beautiful.
loving and compassionate interview.
Perfect. I want that to be a point of reference too. How did that feel for you?
That was awesome. That was
Okay.
really actually at some point I was, which I mean I have to say I most of the time I'm there, but there in that moment, especially with Don Miguel Ruiz on love, it's like whoa. It was pretty mind blowing when you start to talk about the awakened dream and how we're all living dreams. And at that point, I was looking at him and I was like, oh no, I'm co-dreaming with Don Miguel Ruiz right now on love, and I'm like, woo! And I got so present to how great my life is, how fulfilling. But I really
Okay.
got present to that instead of just it's another interview, or I really got very very present to how precious that moment was. Not that I don't do it, but not to that extent on that day. No, definitely not.
So so that's it. So we're now teasing out some qualities that are profoundly fulfilling where you can meet people. Okay? You want to meet them in an energetic quality space that you're promoting in your life, and you're promoting it with ritualized practices. So in other words, that we know that you have a whole side of your experience where you've learned to get by in the world. But then you have this whole other experience where you've actually had these incredible points of reference, whether it's food, whether it's relationship, whether it's sex, whatever it is, just body image, how you feel about your body. To the degree that you dwell in that, the other side will take care of itself. It is not to say that you ignore this side. When you find yourself in patterning, you want to sit there for a minute and dig down and say, what's this about? So that you can apply compassion and heal it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because it really isn't about this side ever going away. It's about this side becoming integrated, because the truth is, in the world, most people operate on the left-hand side. They're making choices out of fear. They're making choices out of this thing. So your ability to help those people, to relate to those people, is the degree to which you have actually embraced that in yourself.
Yeah.
This is my experience with my own weight, is that my patterns of behavior and the fact that I've gone into them allows me to help other people to go into them so they can really become liberated. Really, liberated is integrated. It's not a denial of anything. Anything you deny is going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And that's where the real magnet of our lives, where we recognize we are attracting. Because realize we don't just attract positive. We attract the other pieces. I don't want to call it negative because that's a judgment. And really there's an opportunity whenever we're attracting something to recognize what it's about. It's like if someone says, I want to be rich, and what's fueling that is the fear that they're going to be a pauper, then the chances of them actually embodying the experience of bringing in that kind of abundance is curtailed by the fact that the energetic charge that they haven't reconciled is this deep, profound fear. That's what's running the show.
What's a pauper?
Poor person.
Okay.
Broke. End up broke with nothing. Yeah. So that's the magnetic issue, that when we heal the split, when we become congruent, okay, when we have no conflict. It's interesting, I have had the opportunity to be around some very famous people. I mean, I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I was an actor. I got to know some people, the Barnetts of the world, but other people as well. And what's interesting consistently is I find that they're not conflicted. If you ask me what is the one thing that makes someone, become famous or very successful in all of our eyes. Now, some very successful people are still a mess, but I have met those people that there's a clarity in them. And all I can say is they're not conflicted. Mm-hmm. They're not conflicted. But for me, every time I've sabotaged my success, every time I've done these things, I recognize it's the part of me that's conflicted. And it has to do with some side of me that I have disowned. Mm-hmm. To the degree that I integrate that and bring it along, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be scared. It's like I had this amazing interview I did with Norman, is it Seefe? What's the name, Kate? He's amazing. He's this photographer. He shot everybody in the world, and he's done all these amazing things. He's a good friend of Barnett's.
That's a lot of pictures.
You're right. Not everybody in the world, but like really famous people. Like it's crazy who he shot. And he's done all these iterations. He's been a filmmaker and he's done all these amazing things. He has a new series called Sessions on Oprah's network. It's coming out. Wow. And it's amazing. Going back to 1975, where he filmed Ike and Tina Turner. Like everybody, John Travolta, Scorsese. Wow. I mean, it's crazy. So we were talking about creativity, and he was talking about how fear is part of the creative process. It's always a risk. There's always the fear has to be integrated. But to the degree to which we get that and we bring it along, that's what makes it spectacular. And it also has to be emotional, that it's grounded in that emotional experience. Anyhow, it's a deep, deep interview. He's a deep dude. But all I want to say is all that stuff gets integrated. So for you, because I want to talk to Lilou right now, I see all that you are. I really do. I've seen you shine. And you're very lovable even when you're struggling. The degree to which you can love you are. The degree to which you can love yourself in those moments is the degree to which that part of you gets to be more and more lovable to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, so the one thing I'm leaving you as homework is that day. The day where you really go about wit, whatever it takes, and you plan for yourself what the rituals and practices are that represent you taking the personal power to direct your life however you want it.
I say yes.
And hey, one last thing: keep ritualizing the feminine expression.
That's part of that.
No, but yeah, it is. I know it is totally. Just as Barnett goes into the waves every day. Because really, he has that split, and that's his integration process, and it's ritualized. Keep ritualizing expressions of that, belly dancing, perfect. Whatever works for you. I'm serious. Take up things like that are consciously expressions of the quality, feminine expression. dwell in that, ritualize it, and to that degree, the people you draw in won't be conflicted with it. To the degree that you're conflicted with it, you're going to attract people who are conflicted, and then it gets into all kinds of wonkiness.
Beautiful session. Thank you, Freeman.
My pleasure. And I look forward to us doing Preparing for a Mate, because actually
Is that
all of
next
this
session?
fits. Sure, why not? Let's do it next session, because all of this fits. All of
Okay,
this fits.
great.
I promise you. All right,
Awesome.
beautiful. Thank you, Lilou.
Much love.
Much love.